So let's talk food and nutrition. Um, in a separate video, I touched base on this sort of strength training, cycling chart, and activity, and I talked about my nutrition chart and how I used that. But this video, I'm going to be getting more into sort of my food philosophy in terms of what I eat, why I eat it, getting a little bit more in depth to that part because one, food is very important to me and what I eat. I'm a big believer in what we put into our bodies is what we get out of it. And nutrition is something I'm taking seriously all the time, whether I'm training for an event, a bike event like the Dam or not. So this is a little bit more holistic video to talk about that, but I also touch base on, again, how it sort of connected with all my training for the Dam ride. So to start, just to give you some info behind my philosophy on food. So I'm a big believer in whole foods. So that meaning mainly, I'm not going to get super in depth on all this stuff and what it means, but whole foods just mainly meaning not processed. Big believer in fresh food. So a good way to look at this is like just recently picked. I have a garden in my backyard, picking fresh kale, peppers, whatever from that. That's what I look at as fresh. So something that, obviously isn't expired. So you could also think about an apple grown here in Minnesota versus an apple being picked across the country or whatever. To me, since I'm in Minnesota, looking at that apple from Minnesota is going to be more fresh, maybe than that one from another country that got shipped all the way over here. Also, into eating clean foods. So mainly this means organic, so no pesticides or anything were used during the growing process. And then most of my diet consisted of vegetables, fruits, grains, nuts, seeds, have them written down here, beans, and healthy fats. And most of these I try to consume raw, just for more nutrients to get from those. But at times, we need to cook them, give some different flavors to keep things interesting. But mainly, yeah, those were the main foods that I was eating throughout my training, as well as not. And then you can notice, you may have noticed, I didn't mention dairy or animal or meat products as much. I do still do just eat a little bit of those items, but a very limited amount of dairy and animal products that I do eat. And I could probably go, I could probably get to the point without eating any of those products in the future. Just every once in a while, I do crave them, but yeah. And then last thing to touch on, and maybe I'll get more into this when I sort of show you my charts here, but variety. Having a wide variety of these fruits, vegetables, grains, when you pile all those together, more variety means more nutrients. If you're only eating apples and broccoli, you're not going to get everything that you need. So I'm going to just quick jump over to this food chart now to give you a little bit more insight into how I use this. So as I mentioned in an earlier video with this chart, here's where I logged all my meals. Again, I had it plotted throughout the week, and then I had it split up by breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner. And as I learned more about nutrition too, having a little dessert or recovery snack before I went to bed. And I'll touch base on that. But before I talk about that, I just want to give you an overview of what my general, the general foods that I ate for breakfast, lunch, snacks, and dinner. Not saying that this is the way it was every day, but in general, breakfast started either with muesli or some sort of fruit smoothie bowl with veggies. So muesli is just basically overnight oats that I'd top with fresh fruit and nuts, or smoothie bowls are essentially, use a blender to grind up different fruits and veggies, and then I top it with fresh fruits, nuts, even top it with muesli. So that was mainly what I was eating for breakfast in the mornings. I usually always throw a snack in there, always eating in the mid-morning. And both snacks in the mid-morning and afternoon would mainly be, some sort of piece of fruit, apple, clementines, some sort of trail mix. I'd also eat a lot of carrots and hummus, or like multigrain crackers and hummus. So most of the time, that's what I was eating for my snacks. Usually lunch was my big salad bowls. And again, back to that variety. Um, I either have some sort of, leaf base, whether it's spinach, kale, um, and then I'd throw on a bunch of different, fruits or veggies on that salad with some nuts or seeds or hummus if I need a little bit more bulk in it, especially after a training ride. Um, but this is where that variety comes into key. So I would just basically make a huge pile of a salad. This isn't your average salad where there's just a few tomatoes and cucumbers on it. This is a good hearty salad, and would fill me up. And then dinner, that's kind of where the variety came in. Again, a big focus here for most of my dinners was on those grains. So quinoa, millet, amaranth. I'd be using those sort of grains again to make bowls, essentially veggie bowls, either with maybe salmon, or sometimes I'd have tempeh, which is like how do I even say it? It's like a soy, type meat. So basically a grain bowl with veggies, avocado. And that's kind of where the healthy fats come into play, is when what I'd mainly be having for dinner. So again, variety, a little more hearty with the grains, and other fillings. And then lastly, to just touch base on the dessert recovery section, eating a little bit of protein, I've read and I've found as good for recovery, especially when training. So a little bit of protein snacks. So sometimes this would just be some granola and a little bit of yogurt with some fruit, or I'd have little pieces of energy bars, again, with maybe, I'd make it like a granola energy bar cereal. That's usually what I was eating. And it's just a small amount before bed. And that, right before you go to bed, you get a little protein in. It helps with the recovery process. So that's why I have that in there. So yeah, this is a general, overview of my food eating chart. And really, I was eating pretty healthy before I started training. But as I, started training and took this seriously, I really, looked at the things that I was eating and how I was feeling in general. So I would go back to, my logs here based on what I was eating, and I would tie it back to how my performance was. And in these notes right here, if I said, I was kind of bonking today or wasn't feeling good, I'd always look back to what I ate that day. It might not be the entire, problem with maybe a good ride or I was feeling tired one day. There's obviously other things that go into it, but food was one big thing. But overall, I felt like my nutrition has been a strong point to my training, and just living a general holistic, healthy life. So I really take this serious. It gives me more energy throughout the day. I feel alive. I feel peppy, and this is definitely, I believe, to the foods I eat. So again, this template is available to be shared. If you want any more insight, into some different recipes or foods that I eat, I do have a few blogs out there for muesli, some on the bike snacks. So I'll certainly share those in this video description for you guys to dig more into.